In this movie, we're going to configure PHP to the settings that we like and that we need for this tutorial. Three things that we're going to be looking at: error reporting, output buffering, and time zone. Those are the three areas that we want to address. In the last movie, I showed you how to get the PHP info page. You do that from your WAMP server menu, and you choose localhost, and that will take you to the main WAMP server page, and then PHP info is a link down here that will actually take you to it. So once you're on that page, this has all the information about the way in which PHP is configured. So you can always come here if you want to see what is PHP running right now, what are its configuration options that it's using. This will tell you. The most important one of those is this one, loaded configuration file. That tells us where the configuration file for PHP lives. It's called php.ini. Now WAMP also gives you a shortcut to that so that you don't actually have to go directly there. You can just go to the WAMP menu, and then under PHP, you'll see there's an option for php.ini. Let's open that up now. Now it opens up in your default text editor. For me right now, that's just Notepad that's built into Windows. And these are all the configuration options. Every line with a semicolon in front of it is a comment line. That means that it's not actually being processed. What's actually being processed are the lines that don't have semicolons, the directives that are a little further down. So here, Y2K compliance equals on, for example. Precision equals 14 for significant digits displayed in floating point numbers, and so on. Let's find the ones that we're interested in, though. I'll just do a search, and I can do that from the edit, and then I have find or Control F. You'll see also is what it tells me we'll do it. And then the first thing I want to find is display underscore errors, and find the next occurrence of that. Now that's a commented outline. I'm not interested in that. Let's find the real one. And here it is down here. Display errors equals on. Now it also gives you some information about how to set this. And it typically gives you a development value and a production value. Development is what we're going to be doing on this computer locally. Production is when we actually deploy it to a web server for the whole world to see and use. So we want to have different settings for those two things. For example, with displaying errors, we want the errors to be on for us so that we can see every single thing that goes wrong while we're building it. But when we put it in production, we don't want to expose all of that data to our public. We don't want to tell them gobs and gobs of information about our code or about our setup. So instead, we'll turn it off in that case. So you want to make sure that it's turned on for you, and it should be. Now that's not the only setting related to errors. There are a couple more. The next one is error reporting. You can either search for it if you can't find it. For me, it's right above it here. And let's just scroll up a little bit and find out some of the information about that. Now it tells you what all these different things are and why you would use them, and gives you some common combinations that you might use. Mine is set to report all errors. Now up until I think PHP 5.4, this said all and strict, which is what you can see is what it recommends up here. That strict is now included in all, so you don't have to do that anymore. But if you do, it's fine. It's just backwards compatible for older versions of PHP. Now when we're in production, of course, we want to tell it not to do these, and you put the little twiddle in front of it, the little tilde. So all and not the deprecations. Deprecations are code that's going to stop working in future versions. It works just fine right now, so there's no reason to bother the production server with it. But as a developer, it's very important to see those deprecations because it says, hey, you're using something that's about to go out of date. You might want to think about a replacement for this soon. So make sure that you have either E_all or that you have E_all and then this upright bar E_strict. Now, if you're wondering, well, what is this weird E_all? It's actually a constant that represents a number. And if we just shoot back over here to our PHP info page, let's just do a find here real quick for error reporting, and there it is, and this is the number that it comes up with. But instead of trying to work with all the different numbers that correspond to these different things, those are settings of different bits, instead we just use E_all. It's a lot more convenient. The next one I want us to look for in this same document is HTML errors. HTML errors, and here it is. We want to make sure that this is turned on. You would turn it off for production. But it basically says, when you create an error, do you want me to just give you text, or do you want me to put some HTML around the error as well? And I like it better with the HTML around it. I think it looks a little nicer. So let's go ahead and do that. It also allows it to include HTML links in those errors, which can be handy. So that's it for errors. Now let's look at output buffering. That's a concept that we'll talk about later on. For now, I'll just try and find output underscore buffering. It says it can't find it, but I need to search up. It's probably up above. That's not the one I want. There it is. So let's go up a little bit more. Now, my default setting is just to have it turned on. It says here that you can also provide a number. That's the amount of bytes that it will allow it to buffer. 4096 is a default value. That's what most people use. So you could also just have 4096 in here. However, we're going to all turn it off right now. Output buffering is a desirable feature. It's something that we're going to talk about, and we're going to learn why you would want to use it. But until you know about it, I want us to have it off. And then you'll appreciate it and you'll understand, oh, that's what it does, and that's why I need to use it. So for now, let's all make sure that output buffering is turned off. And then the next thing that we want to look at is the time zone. So again, let's do a search. We'll do search for time zone. There it is right there. Date.timezone equals, and you might have empty quotes here. It might be commented out, or like me, you might have UTC. UTC is Greenwich Mean Time. Now you can leave it to UTC and it'll work just fine, but you do need to set it to something. And that's because if you don't set it, then PHP is going to start giving you some errors from time to time saying, hey, you're doing something that's related to date and time, but you don't have a default time zone set. That's not a good idea. So let's avoid those warnings by having some time zone set. Now, I'm not in UTC, so I'm going to go ahead and actually give it my time zone. On the php.net website, you can find a list of those. php.net manual/en/timezones.php. And then I'm in America, so I'll click on America. You can scan down. You can find cities that are close to you. So maybe you're somewhere close to Denver or you're close to Louisville. I'm actually going to be close to New York. So here it is for me, America, new_York. So that's what I need to put in as my value. It has to be exactly like that. I'm going to put it in quotes. It's going to be America/new_York. So that's going to be my time zone, and it will then use that as a default when it's working with dates. And most importantly, it'll get PHP to stop giving us warnings about it. So once you're done, you'll want to go to File and Save to save your changes. And then you can close it. And then let's go back to WAMP and let's restart all services. So that'll get all of those changes take effect. It'll turn yellow briefly, red, yellow, and then back to green. Now it's back online. Now if we go back here to our PHP info page, scroll up to the top, you can reload the page, and then we can look for some of those changes to see if they took effect. The one that I'm most interested in is going to be output buffering. So let's just see if we find that. Output, and it has no value right now for it, which means that it's turned off. Let me look for my time zone, and you can see my default time zone now says America and New York. So those are the three key configurations that you want to make sure that you set up before you start using PHP. There are plenty of other ones in there that you can set for yourself, but those are the ones that we really need to have before we move forward.